Hey, how you doing? It's Tom Breeze here, and in this training video we're going to talk about the power of embedded metaphors and how you can use them in your next presentation. Look, when it comes to presenting, if you just say the words and say the message that you have to say, it's not going to have that much impact. If we can put a story behind those words, then you're going to find you influence people on a much deeper level, and they'll be much more persuaded and moved by the words you have to say. And likewise, you'll engage them and you'll get them excited by what you have to say. Now, this can be used for many different business presentations as well as informal presentations as well. And I'm going to talk you through different scenarios so you can see exactly how this applies to you. And it works in the same way like EastEnders might, or any soap for that matter. Don't you find you kind of come to the end of an episode, and just before the end of the episode, they build you up into this excited state, and they cut it because they say, right, next week, tune in for next week to find out exactly what happens. And we feel like, oh, I really want to know what it is. Well, you can use that in exactly the same way for your presentations. You might change it depending on the scenario you're in. So if you're giving a business presentation, you might not do it exactly that way. However, you can use the principle of this to really impact your audience. Now, the way you do it, you think about the message that you have for your audience members. Now, if you're giving an informal talk, you want to think about the few core principles that you want to pull across to your audience. So, for example, if you're giving a best man speech, you might talk about your best man, and you might be thinking about exactly what it is that you have to say about that person. Like they're a kind person, or they are someone that you can really get on with and you love them, or something along those lines. Likewise, if you're giving a business presentation, you might be talking about your business and what you want the audience members to take away with them. And that might be something along the lines of, we are a business that can be trusted, or something like that. That's the message that you might have for your audience members. If you're selling something, you might be talking about the importance of making the right decision, or the importance of investment. Does that make sense so far? So you have your message that you want to say. And then you think about a story that can sum that up. So you might think about something that's happened to you, you might think about something that's happened to somebody else, or you can just make up a story, whatever it might be. Make sure it's appropriate, and the more similar you can make that story for your audience members, the more that you're going to engage them, and thus the more you can move them as well. And the way you do it, you write out the whole of your story, or you think about what the whole of that story is, and then you find the moment which is that kind of cliffhanger moment, like for instance any soap that you might watch. And it normally is around about 75% of the way through. And it's what we call concatenation. You break off at that point. So you might have a group of 3 stories to sum up what you want to say. You go through story 1, 75% of the way, and break off. Then you do story 2, 75% of the way, and break off. Story 3, 75% of the way, and break off. Then you say the content, so what you really have to say, so that all the meat of the presentation, let's say. And then when it comes to the appropriate moment, you start closing off these stories, start finishing these stories. And you would go backwards. So you would do the end of story 3, then you do the end of story 2, and then the end of story 1. Does that make sense? Because you're going to find you really motivate your audiences and move your audiences as well. This can be used very effectively if you use something like case studies or examples or past clients that you might have worked with in business presentations. And if you think about a best man speech or more of an informal speech, you might think about the message you have there, and the stories might be something on the lines of what you've experienced with that person. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does. So go and use this. I'm going to give you another video in the next few days, and that's going to be below this video, and so you can check that out as well. It's going to be an example of some of the metaphors that I use whenever I present to different audiences as well. And so you can see exactly how this works in action. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you want to find out more, then just click onto tombreeze.com and you'll be able to find out all the videos there. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks very much.